Starfang, a sword of legendary status crafted out of material from a shooting star. This weapon glows like the stars in the night sky, and it grants its wielder an unparalleled power for a weapon of its class. In medieval times, houses and individuals of prominence would bestow titles on the most worthy knights, who were an exemplar for all that was righteous. Now, despite the fact that Starfang is not an ancestral weapon, a warrior who proves worthy enough to carry Starfang should be granted the title Sword of the Night, which is what this build video is going to review.
As you say.
What's going on, YouTube? Chop Celery here, and welcome to my Sword of the Night build in Dragon Age Origins, specifically for Nightmare difficulty. In all honesty, this build came about because I had been, looking online and just reading a lot of the feedback from the community, just saying that a sword and shield build is never going to be strong enough to keep up with a pure DPS character. And I really took that as a challenge with this build, just to see how much damage I could pump out, and potentially even playing two roles. Now, with this build video, I'll review my attributes, my equipment, I'll review my skills, and then finally I'll review my talents. But I really, as I'm going through this, I'm going to try to emphasize as much as I can the duality of this build, that we are a DPS character, but we also can fill the shoes of a tank. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and take a look at my attributes first. Now, talking about attributes, like I did for other warrior builds, you definitely want to focus on strength. Strength first, just so that way you can wear the heaviest of armor. You need at least 42 for the base game, as well as it's going to increase your melee damage. It's going to increase also your chances to hit. Now, for a sword and shield, I believe the minimum dexterity that you're going to need in order to have all of the sword and shield talents is 26. Now, I didn't just want to stop there, because dexterity, like I've done in other build videos, every single point that you invest into dexterity, it's going to give you 1 point of defense. And since we are going to be fitting two roles as a tank and a DPS, we definitely wanted to have as high of a defense as possible, just so that way we could dodge as many incoming attacks and stay in the fray. Now, the other two attributes that I would encourage you just to put a couple points into would be willpower, in addition to constitution. Willpower, this one is incredibly vital, just because since we are going to be trying to play two roles, you definitely need to have a decent stamina pool, because we will be doing activated abilities, which is where a majority of our DPS is going to come from. And then followed up with constitution, just in case that an attack gets through my defense. And as you see, I only have 30 as my armor rating, so I may take some damage here and there, just in case my defense is isn't enough. But for my strength, I got it up to 65, and I have +8 to it. For my dexterity, I have 32 as my base and +9 to it. My willpower, I have it at 18 as base and then +13 passives. And then for constitution, I have it at 18. I'm getting 16 bonuses to it. Now, going down to my stats, I have 363 health. I have 220 stamina. Now, keep in mind that this is the stamina that I have still left after I put on all my sustained abilities. My armor is 30. Defense rating is 155. My attack is 173. My damage is 79.8, and I only have 16.8 fatigue percentage. Now, it's important to note that I am getting stacked bonuses from rally, because I typically, with this type of build, I ran in kind of with a wrecking crew. It's kind of what I've been referring to them as in my playthrough, with Sten and then with Ogren. Since I'm also fulfilling the role of a tank, I haven't really used Alistair in my party at all, and because rally stacks, and with Ogren and Sten both having that on, I'm getting basically 3 times the bonus of having rally. And I'm always going to have that on just because we're all melee characters. So that's why I definitely wanted to emphasize, having those bonuses on despite two of those not being directly mine. Now, there are times where when you're in the fray and you may not have Berserk on, which is my other specialization. So let's go ahead and put that on, and then I'll show you the difference. My damage just went up to 89.5, so just, there have been times where unfortunately, I've forgotten to put it on in certain combat encounters, but as you can see, I have a pretty high damage without it. My attack rating is pretty high, defense and armor, so it does a decent amount, in terms of damage, but it's okay if you don't remember to put it on. Don't judge me. But just to talk about my specializations, as I just went over that I do have on Berserk, which I am a Berserker, and also I have Rally as one of my sustains, so I am a champion. I feel like these two have a really good synergy just because, one, with Rally, it's great for crowd control, so as well as putting a debuff on your enemies so that way they can't do as much damage. In addition to Berserk, it's just going to help us with when you get the other two passives in the tree beyond the sustained, you're going to get a bonus to health regeneration in addition to reducing the stamina regen penalty when Berserk is on. All those things are pretty good for a tank just in that type of sense. So let's talk about my equipment though. For my weapon, I'm using Starfang, just the single-handed sword. This is, in my opinion, the best weapon in the game in terms of for its class, especially when it's at Star Metal, the highest quality it can be. So damage is 11.9, critical chance is 3.4%, armor penetration is 4.2. You get passives of +3 dex, +3 damage, and +2.5 armor penetration. Comes with 3 runes. I went with +5 cold damage, +5 electricity damage, just because we will be doing auto attacks in between our activated abilities in our rotation. And then I went ahead and put +20 physical resistance, just because I wanted to make sure that my tank had pretty high resistances, so that way at least I could stay within the fray and not get stunned too often. Now, for my shield, I'm using the Fadewall. I got this from Gax Kang. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's from the Unbound quest. It's a pretty rare drop, so just in case he doesn't drop it, just make sure you save before you go into the quaint hovel. I think that's the area that you find it. You have to beat him a bunch of times until he drops it. I decided to use this because it does give me +3 defense. So overall, with using the shield, I get +9 defense. Missile deflection's 9. It's pretty good. The most important points for this, I think the 20% healing effects received, I think that's bugged. But I get +2 stamina regen in combat and +25 stamina. So it's just going to allow me to have a little bit more stamina so I can keep pumping out activated abilities. Now in terms of my armor, there are 2 sets that I would run with. Now that I have the Superior set, I've been using Wade Superior Heavy Dragon Scale set. It's good overall, especially because you do get the +1 stamina regen in combat for the gloves. For the chest, you get another +25 stamina. +2 stamina regen in combat, as well as +1 stamina regen in combat for the boots, as well as all of the pieces give you a certain passive to fire resistance. When you have the total set, it gives you -20 fatigue, in addition to +5 defense. So it's pretty good. I really enjoy using this set. Despite most tanks, they will elect to have a massive armor set. I don't want to rock that out. I don't want to have my fatigue to be too high because I do want to be able to pump out as many activated abilities as possible. Now for my helmet of the current set I'm using, it's Helm of Hanleaf. You get this from the Stone Prisoner DLC. I'm using this just because I get +3 armor and +2 to all attributes. So just in case you don't have any of this stuff, I have another set that I have been using, and it's the Diligence set. Using the Diligence set overall, it's pretty good. The gloves gives you +4 armor, chest 2 armor, +1 health regen in combat, and then the boots, it's +6 defense, +2 armor. Using the whole set, just the 3, the boots, chest, and the gloves gives you +5 willpower, so you get more stamina. And then I decided to throw on the Executioner's Helm, just because it also gives you +25 stamina. So again, just trying to make sure I have as much stamina in the bank as possible, so that way at least I can keep going with a rotation, beyond just auto-attacking. Now, in terms of my accessories, I am using, just like all my other builds, Andril's Blessing, +2 to all attributes, +2 stamina regen in combat. Again, you get another +10 physical resistance, which is good, and +20% nature resistance. Spell Ward, I think this one's also pretty good. +5 willpower, +30% spell resistance, +10% chance to dodge attacks, and chance to avoid missile attacks. Also important to note, like, since I am using, some pretty high quality gear, starting out as a dwarf, I believe you get just a passive bonus to 10% to spell resistance. So this just adds on another 30. So I believe I get 40% spell resistance in conjunction with my passive as a racial passive, and this one from Spell Ward. Also, I use Key to the City, again, +4% spell resistance, +2 to all attributes, and Life Giver, great for a tank. +6 health regen in combat, +10 constitution, +3 armor. So, alright, that's been my gear. Now let's go ahead and talk about the skills. For skills, I didn't really focus on putting any other kind of points beyond just the coercion. Master combat training, you definitely need this for the upper tier abilities. And then I did decide to go and put 2 points for combat tactics. For this one, I didn't want to spend any more points for buying extra skills for the survival line. I'm already pretty durable as it is. But in terms of the talents, I maxed out the warrior first line. The most important one would be Death Blow, just because we are playing 2 roles, and because I am pumping out a lot of damage at once, just because of my activated abilities, when I do kill an enemy, it gives me a portion of the stamina back, which is great. That just helps me to keep my rotation going strong. For the second line, I definitely pick up Precise Striking and Taunt. I did pick up Disengage, but I didn't really know what else to put my point into, so I don't really use that. Precise Striking I always have on. You get a higher chance for attack and critical hits, but it does slow down your attack speed. I'm not too worried about that. Taunt, you definitely need this for a tank. I use this just in my general rotation to make sure that I get enemies to focus on me. For the champion line, I pick up all the points, definitely worth it. I always use Warcry to put the debuff on the enemy so that their attack is lower, in addition to when I have superiority, the last point. It basically becomes a crowd control ability, so if they don't pass a resistance check, they get knocked to the ground. Rally, it's another good one. I always have this on, followed by Motivate. So when you have Rally on, you and your allies now with Motivate get a increase to attack and defense when you have that on. And it's just like about the size of like an AoE around you, like one of the spell AoE. So it's a pretty decent size. Now for the Berserker, like I was saying, I pick up the Sustain, just gives you a bonus to your damage. But then when you pick up Resilience, you get a nature resistance bonus that is active regardless. If you have the Sustained on, you get a bonus to health regen. And then for Constraint, it just reduces the penalty to stamina regen. So I definitely think Berserk, when you are going to be doing like a DPS kind of role, putting that on just going to help you, dish out more damage and kill your enemies quicker. And then go ahead and max out all of the lines for the weapon and shield. Most important, the 2 sustained abilities within the weapon and shield that I use would be Shield Wall, when I need to be a tank and really focus on just drawing aggro and not getting knocked down. And then when I'm not a tank and I decide to go ahead and be more of a DPS support kind of character, I use Shield Defense. With all the passives that you end up picking up, like Shield Expertise and Shield Mastery, you no longer will receive penalties to attack, and you get increased bonuses to your defense when using Shield Defense. Same thing with Shield Wall. When you have on Expertise and Mastery, you're going to get a greater bonus to your armor, and you're going to be immune to direct knockdown. So that's definitely why I switch on Shield Wall when I need to be more of a tank role in a combat encounter, just so that way I can stay in the fray, keep the enemy's attention, and keep my enemies alive, or my allies alive. Not keep my enemies alive, jeez. But alright friends, that has been just my build in short, and now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to some real-time gameplay so that way you can see it in action. I hope you enjoy. Alright, take care friends. Bye-bye.
I shall do it. It shall be done.
victory.
Time to get messy. It shall be done.
Strike, quickly. Let us end this. I will fight if I must.
As you say. It's a fine thing we Witcher draws near. As you say, it shall be done.
Must have victory.
It has begun. I shall have it. As you say. It has begun. As you say. It has begun. Shall be done. As you say. Very well. I shall do it. As you say. I shall do it. As you say. It shall be done. I shall do it. It has begun.
Immediately.
Shall be done.